Hello slot car fans, or especially Carrera Go fans. Today is kind of a special day for me. I realized that here on October the 23rd, this was the day that I put out my very first video, the first video that I published publicly. And since then I've got 996 subscribers at last check. So I'm only 4 away from hitting 1,000. And that's just incredible to me. I can't believe that many people have been interested, but you know, I've tried to put more and more effort into it and make things improve over the time. I started with one camera and now I'm using multiple cameras for some shots and doing, you know, more interesting editing and stuff, hopefully to capture people's interests, and trying to keep some tip videos coming as I think I learn things that I can pass on, or I see other information and prove that it works and pass on the fact that it works. So in this case, I want to show you some stuff about these Carrera Go controllers. I've talked to you about this numerous times in the past videos. If you've watched them, you've seen my biggest pet peeve about the Carrera Go stuff is the turbo buttons. First off, the fact that you have to have a turbo button kind of sucks, because you go from 0 to like maybe 50 or 60% throttle here, and then you have to push this turbo button to access 100%, but it jumps right to 100%, and so you basically have no control at all between 60 and 100. Even if you push that button and release this, you don't get any control. You're just, once this button is pushed, you're at 100%, and so it doesn't really give you the delicate control that I think a lot of people would prefer to have if they're trying to race. So as I mentioned before, it's sort of a gimmick that a lot of the 1/43rd scale companies are using. And like I said on my previous video, if any of you guys in the companies that are making this stuff are watching this video, get rid of the doggone turbo buttons. That is just useless. Just add a little extra length to the throw of the throttle here and make it all 0 to 100 on the thumb throttle. Now, with that being said, the main problem with these Carrera controllers, other than that is that the turbo buttons are not very reliable. That's the main thing that I have broken out of the past year. Like I said, with this being my anniversary video, basically, I'm going to show that over the past year I have broken more than this amount of controllers, and most of them have been because that the turbo button crapped out. It either started sticking on, or it became unreliable to where you'd push the throttle and you hit the turbo button on the big straight and nothing would happen. So you'd go, and hit it again and nothing happened. So you hit it again and hold it, but now you're at the very end of the straight where you definitely don't want to be using the turbo button, and all of a sudden now it works and you just go flying off the end. And so that's kind of disappointing. And so, like I say, Carrera guys, you got to either make a better turbo button or get rid of that button. I also want to qualify this a little bit, that most of my racers are not little children and stuff with small, weak hands. Most of my friends are people that, and myself as well, are people that work with our hands. We're, sort of mechanical tech guys, mechanics and sound techs and all that kind of stuff. I haven't had any, let's call them pencil pushers. I haven't really had any of those kind of people racing with me. It's mostly guys that use their hands to do stuff all day long. And so that may have something to do with it as well. But I've figured out a couple of fixes for a couple of the simpler problems that I've run into, and that's what I want to talk about here now. Let's get all this out of the way. A couple of different things that are the simpler problems that happen with these, not necessarily the turbo button going bad. I'm going to have to get into that a little later, but today's video is just about a couple of the simple problems you can fix. A lot of times this little red part, if you can see that little red part there, let me zoom in on it here a bit. The red piece is a separate piece of plastic that is attached to this black shaft that's coming out of here. And that black shaft has a little centerpiece that goes up inside a void inside this red piece. Now, if this just comes unglued and the red piece pops off, it's really easy to glue that back on with just about any kind of glue. Plastic cement will work, super glue will work, whatever. Just don't let it get all down here and, screw up your mechanism. But what also happens sometimes is maybe you've glued it once like that already, and the next time somebody ham-fists it, a week or two later, the whole thing breaks off and it takes off, it shears off right here, so that that piece that goes inside the void here is broke off inside that void. Well, you don't have a whole lot of gluing area there, folks. I mean, it's not really going to be very easy to glue that back on. And that's where this glue right here comes in pretty handy. Now, I haven't used this, or should I say I haven't sufficiently tested this in this particular instance to say that this is, I'm 100% sure this is going to be the way to solve your problem. But what I can tell you is it's a way to try, and I don't have any other ways to try, because nothing else is going to glue that tiny little bit, of shaft to the top of this thing. It just, nothing's going to make that kind of a joint and hold strong. Epoxy and stuff, by the time you get enough in there and then you wipe it all off, you've only got such a thin layer in there, and epoxy doesn't like to glue to plastic. The poly glues don't really like to glue to plastic. Nothing really likes to glue to plastic all that well, except liquid plastic cement. This stuff is kind of a liquid plastic, and it works pretty doggone well. So far, I've glued up a few of these. I haven't used them much yet, but they haven't broken off yet either. So I'm not going to say I'm sure this is the way to go, but I'm going to say it's certainly a way to try. And it's better than throwing the controllers away. The other problem you also run into is that and this I've seen on the internet a few times, where the throttle, especially on the older ones, maybe they got some sticky stuff or some sweat on them, and the throttle button kind of sticks. It doesn't want to pop all the way out again when you release it and stuff like that. Well, I went to the old school, this old Radio Shack spray. I'm an audio guy, and this old Radio Shack spray here, I bought a couple of cans right before Radio Shack went out of business. This was kind of like the old school, kind of like the WD-40 for audio guys. I mean, this stuff fixes a myriad of problems. But this particular spray will clean out your gunk, and also leaves a lubricating layer that I believe can be helpful, especially when we're talking about sticky mechanisms. So basically just take this, there's two screws that hold this together on this side. You just take those screws out and kind of spray down the slider, the mechanism in there, and I would also spray down the mechanism for the switch a bit. And it's so far, once again, the ones I've done this, it seemed to get rid of the stickiness problem, although I did have to give them some exercise. It didn't just go away right away. I had to actually use it a little bit, and it got rid of the stickiness after a little bit of usage. Now, the drawback, I guess, is because that stuff leaves that lubricant in there. I've already got it on my hand right now just from showing this one. It sort of slowly oozes its way out, and so you have to kind of wipe it periodically. And I assume that's going to stop at some point, but I'm using this one a lot, and it works. Like I said, at least it works, so I don't have to throw that controller away. So there's your two things. I'm not sponsored by these guys or anything, but just wanted to let you guys know. The other brands of contact cleaner and lubricant, I'm sure would be quite acceptable to use as well. You're probably not going to find this particular stuff anymore, but this particular stuff just seems to have a pretty high lubricant value, which may or may not be a real good thing to have, because like I said, I'm getting more lube than I need, really. The Bonding glue, once again, this stuff is really handy if you're trying to glue something in an odd spot. As long as you can hold it together with one hand while hitting it with that UV light, and once you hit it a little bit with that UV light, it'll sort of tack together, and then you don't have to worry about holding it quite as tight anymore. You can just kind of rotate the part around and keep hitting it with that UV light. So far, so good. I've used this in a number of different instances, and it has it's been kind of a lifesaver. So I recommend it. Highly recommend it. Anyway, so there you go. I also want to say as the last thing, since I'm at 996 subscribers, if you happen to watch this video and you're not already a subscriber, please go ahead and subscribe, because at this point it'd be kind of fun for me to be able to hit that hit that figurehead point of 1,000. So I'd appreciate it if you would. And I also want to thank everybody else that has subscribed in the past, because obviously you guys are the ones that helped get me where I am now. So thanks again. Hope you guys enjoy the video, and we'll see you next time.